Welcome to my wheelhouse, also known as the Call to Defend podcast, where we are finally stepping into the New Testament and discussion of the waters.
What do you mean? I know you mean like the New Testament is yours, but you phrase like Call to Defend is your wheelhouse.
It's your baby, it's my wheelhouse.
Okay. That's kind of a weird sentence to think about. I'm not sure how to process that one. There's much more we could talk about when it comes to the waters and the Tehom and the Yam. The problem is there's so many times they appear. Water by itself, Mayim, and then Yam and Tehom. You could go on for a while, but I think we kind of got the point across about how the Old Testament uses it. I think we should revisit one that we referenced at the very beginning. Those for like a minute?
Yeah.
But we have three passages that all told the same story,
Right.
that we could kind of dive into and have a good conversation about.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very well-known passage.
Extremely well known.
I'm saying this more for the listeners. You already kind of know this, but very well-known passage. Jesus walking on water, as many people call it. Matthew chapter 14, verse 22. And immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he sent away the crowds. And after he sent away the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. So when evening came, he was there alone. But the boat was already a stadia. I just blanked for a second. Distant from the land, being beaten by the waves because the wind was against it. And the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But the disciples, when they saw him walking on the sea, were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Have courage, I am he. Do not be afraid."
I mean, we don't even make it out of the first verse before there's some divine stuff happening here.
Oh my goodness. What are you seeing?
So, I sit corrected, I guess. I'm sitting down right now, that's why I say that. Second verse, right? The idea of, and he went up onto the mountain, right?
Mm-hmm.
That exact phraseology is near verbatim of the Septuagint of going and meeting God, like Moses does it. Elijah does it.
Yeah.
It's a very intentional statement there by Matthew.
Oh, very much.
Right.
So,
And we talked a little bit recently about the more Jewish nature of Matthew's gospel. Matthew knows full well what he is writing when he says that. You'd be hard-pressed to find a single sentence in Matthew that is not very, very intentionally written to a Jewish audience. And for him to then say that he went up on the mountain, that specific phrase, not he climbed the mountain, not he walked up the mountain, he went up on the mountain. Matthew is a first century Jew. He knows the Septuagint very well. And especially since he's a tax collector and therefore very well versed in the common tongue, for him to use that phrase is very much an indication of something divine is about to happen. Something that is very clearly God oriented is about to happen, right? Because when you get with Moses going up onto the mountain, that's obviously Mount Sinai. He goes and receives the 10 Commandments, and he has a meeting with God. And then when he goes up the second time, he comes back down and his face shines. Matthew is building here. The transfiguration is coming soon. Matthew is setting things up. And so we have here Jesus ascending the mountain. Sorry, I want to keep using that phrase. Going up onto the mountain to commune with God, just as Moses did, just as Elijah did. Matthew is building here in just this one little verse that nobody would even think about, really. In that one little phrase, Matthew is saying, God is about to appear here, right? And obviously, Jesus is God. Right. He is constantly appearing, but something is about to happen that makes it so undeniably obvious that Jesus is the God of the universe, incarnate.
Mm-hmm.
And this is setting that up.
No, yeah, you're right. The second you said that, I immediately thought about the shining face of Moses as well. Like he has ascended the mountain. Now he's coming down. Something usually happens when they come down. Something usually happens when they go up too, but usually shows up heavily when it comes down. And I think it's interesting that it also specifies that he went there alone.
Yes.
So this was a very intimate moment between the Father and the Son on this mountain. They were having this communal moment on the mountain that now is going to play out heavily into this next section.
It makes a point to say, and he was alone
Yes. Yeah.
Right. It says, evening now, having arrived alone, he was there. But yeah, that idea of intimacy and the fact that he goes up alone to pray, and we don't get any insight as to what happens there. It's so intimate, it's too intimate for us to even know. Which again, when Moses goes up on Sinai, we get a little bit. But then there's that section in Exodus 34 where it says he was up there for many days. Right? And even in Exodus, I think it's 19, it just says he's up there for many days. Right? And then that's why the Israelites begin to worship the golden calf, because they think, oh, he's not coming back. He's been up there for so long. But we only get that very brief glimpse. Yeah. Again, Matthew is building here. Something is coming. And in many ways, what we're about to read, yes, it's a very clear divine event. It's prefaced with the mountain. It's still just a step. It's building. Everything is building to the transfiguration. And so we have this Moses moment.
Which is one of Matthew's big points, is him pointing out that this is new. Like, we have the talking about what Jesus goes through when he's an infant, the whole going to Egypt and all these other things. This is all Exodus language, is Exodus echoes.
And then the Sermon on the Mount is the completion of the Mosaic Law.
Yeah.
So Matthew's entire gospel is just setting up Jesus in the Jewish context, saying, hey, guys, this person that you've been looking for, he came, you killed him, and then he rose from the dead. He's God. Wake up.
I think that we rightly understand that there's much Greco-Roman bibliographical writing in here, but it is not to say that, but they also heavily include Jewish writing style and tradition.
Oh, extremely.
So they keep some of those the biographical elements in there to show there's history, but also they're describing it with the Jewish theological flair. Not to be like, hey, this is not really this, but to be like, hey, yo, Jewish readers and those who read the Old Testament under Jewish teachers or Old Testament teachers, here you go.
Right.
You should be able to see this right here. It's right in front of you. But we don't see it right in front of us because we just kind of disassociate. Not just like cultural post-Western, like we always talk like the post-Enlightenment Western society and this, but we kind of disassociate New Testament, Old Testament. We, whether we realize it or not, tend to pull almost Marcionist type stuff.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, not
I had a nickel for every time Marcion came up today. I'd have 2 nickels.
Like, it's not the same where we're talking about how the two gods are, like, God here and God here is different, but like, we treat the two testaments like they're different and they just touch on each other because old bad, new good.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they're all good.
I mean, Matthew is the second part of Exodus, right? And in a lot of ways, and we're kind of rabbit trailing here a little bit, but in a lot of ways, Jesus is the Moses that Moses wasn't.
Yeah.
Right? Like, where Moses failed, Jesus succeeded.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, we maybe could do a look at the 2 books side by side and compare them. But like, just take, for example, Matthew 4, where Jesus is tempted in the wilderness.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the wilderness for 40 days, 40 nights. 40 years.
Right.
It's that continuation of 40.
Exactly. And then, turning the stone to bread.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's manna for you, right? Yeah. I mean, it's so clear and obvious when you're looking at it that every single event is Jesus succeeding. In some cases where Moses succeeded, but in other cases where Moses failed.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
As in, he is not only the new Moses, he is the better Moses.
Yeah. I mean, that's when you get like the whole, at the end of the Torah, the whole like there will come a prophet greater than Moses.
Right.
There's that one that will be greater.
Yeah.
And Matthew's saying, here's the guy.
Yep, here he is.
Here's the guy. Which there's so many people who say, well, Jesus wasn't God, he was a prophet. And it's like, yeah, he was a prophet. That doesn't mean he's not God. Prophet doesn't mean that you can't be God. It's a messenger who's given the message from God. And there's certain qualifications.
The angel of the Lord. Right, who is the pre-incarnate Christ and is there all throughout the Exodus.
Yeah. And is called Yahweh.
is called Yahweh.
Because he has the name in him.
Right.
It's the whole name theology stuff.
That's where we get the first, actual confession of the name Yahweh. The angel of the Lord is the one who says it, who says, I am, which gets us back to Matthew 14.
Verse 24. But the boat was already many stadia distant from the land, beaten by the waves, because the wind was against it. This is an important verse right here.
It is. And so what translation are you reading?
I currently have the Lexham English Bible in front of me.
Okay, interesting.
That's the one I currently have in front of me. They kind of sit more towards like the CSB style, where they're like kind of a functional and kind of a formative.
Right.
They try to sit that middle.
Yeah. So the reason I ask is the word there, which is not fun to try and say, but it's basanazomenen. Yeah, basanazomenen. Basanazomenen. That you have translated as...
In this translation, it's beaten.
Beaten.
I can even compare it to other ones real quick.
See, now, generally, in terms of a boat, that would be like tossed, but outside of that context, I would say it's more like tormented.
So I have in front of me, I have my logos open to some comparative other verses or other translations. ESV reads beaten. NASB 95 has battered. Interesting. NIV buffeted.
I mean, those are kind of synonyms in
NRSV.
terms of
but when I pull
sailing.
up the BDAG, I can't remember the full name of it. I just remember the acronym BDAG. It's like one of the most common scholarly used lexicons. The ones it pulls up are torture, torment, harass.
Yeah, because that's normally what the word means.
Yeah. But it's interesting that I kind of like the more aggressive.
Yeah, they're being tortured. The boat is being tortured.
I think they probably use beaten because you don't think of torture in regards to an inanimate object.
Right.
But who's in the boat? They're
exactly.
People. So they're being tortured by this.
And so they are right now being subject to chaos.
This is a storm. This is a chaotic storm.
Yes, this is a tempest for all of our Shakespeare fans out there. You know you're the one. A lot of people think, it was a choppy sea, or it was raining or stuff. This is like they're in the middle of a hurricane type storm. That's what's being conveyed here. Right? That the boat is being tortured. In other words, they are not making any progress. They are just stuck, and they are probably thinking we are going to die, which makes the subsequent statement of thinking that Jesus is a ghost gives it a little more context and honestly makes it a little funnier to me, right? Because they're probably thinking, that's a ghost. Oh crap, we are dead. We have died, and we are now in Hades. So I understand why they translate it the way they do, but I wanted to focus on that word because it is such an intense word. I think it needs to be hammered home of the level of storm this is and how it is indicative that they are in full chaos right now. And here comes Yahweh to deliver them. It's a Genesis event.
So what's also interesting is I appreciate that you mentioned that the whole part about the torture's beating.
I'm glad you appreciate that I mentioned torture.
No, the reason is the reason I say that is when you look at Mark in verse 48. So it has the same word there for, I'm just going to say beating because that's what they have there, right, in this translation. But it's the same Greek word, in their rowing, because the wind was against them.
Yes.
So now we have Mark is adding on the fact that the wind is against not just the boat, like not talking about the boat being tortured, but the wind is against the ones who are moving the boat, steering the boat, rowing the boat. That, sure, grammatically you have, maybe they translated beat because it's the thing that's being beaten is the boat, but it's against the people in the boat. And Mark hammers that home explicitly.
He does. It's interesting. So looking at the Greek of it, the last phrase there, right? And the wind was against them, anemos, which is, was for adversary, the wind. I find adversary very interesting.
is one of those interesting things how you can see the obviously great benefit and blessing we have of these English translations. But they even admit that they can't capture everything because it's a translation. And so they're doing great work here, but those extra layers of nuance that just can't be really communicated just by reading. You have to like talk about these things and dive into it further. It shows like just how much more theologically nuanced this entire thing is. This is not merely just wind. This is not merely just Jesus praying on a mountain. This is a prophet, God, storm, chaos, conquering moment.
And especially because we talk about, when we talked about previously, I guess, how both wind and water are chaos forces. Yeah. And you get them both here, right? So you get the water, which is described as torturing the boat, right, in the storm. And then you get the wind, which is, quote, was for adversary.
Yeah.
Which, adversary is a very specific word. Most often it is used for Satan. And so I think of your adversary, the devil, as roaming around like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. This is very much, as we were talking about, a Genesis event. This is chaos. The adversary is present, and here comes Yahweh. Which again, we're going to get there. But here comes Yahweh, and he is going to conquer chaos, the adversary, and there is not a thing they can do about it.
Yeah. Verse 25. In the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. I'm just going to pause right there. That's already like, even if we're not studying this, that's already a very jarring statement. Yeah. Man's walking on the sea. Also, real quick, he's not walking on water. They're very specific with their word choice here.
Yeah, so there are 3 words in Greek for sea. There is abusos, which is abyss, thalases, which is sea, and then pontos, which is also sea. Pontos is not that commonly used in scripture. It's actually more so used in mythology. I'm blanking on who it is right now. There is a myth about I believe it's a Greek figure who becomes a mermaid, or I guess merman because he's male, but becomes a mermaid man and goes to the bottom of the sea, right? And it's pontos. That's the word that is used there. Pontos, not so much used in scripture outside of, as we talked about, Pontius Pilate.
Right.
And he chose that name for being the 5th governor. And so that was a little bit of fun that the Jews had with his name, right? Because obviously now he's acting as a force of chaos. So they poke fun at him a little bit there, which he wouldn't really have been aware of because it's a Jewish custom and he's not a Jew. But primarily in scripture, you get the word thalases, and then in specific cases, you get the word abusos,
right,
where there is a theological meaning to be conveyed. Here, Matthew uses the word thalases, which makes sense in the general context because it's a specific sea that they've referred to several times, obviously being the Sea of Galilee. So to call it abusos here would not fit with the other contexts. However, thalases here not only fits with that context, but is also perfectly acceptable to use here and get the same point across, right? Because, I mean, in Genesis, it uses both Tehom and Yam.
And Mayim.
Right, but generally the words for sea are used not quite interchangeably, but alongside one another to still convey the same meaning.
Yeah, and I think the really interesting thing, too, is how it's still building up. We still have this big build-up right here but it's a big build-up, but it's also looking back to Genesis 1. As we've stated at the very beginning, and you've restated here, where we have this storm that is crashing and torturing and being an adversary, but then Jesus is just ever so calmly walking over the water. I think it was Robert Miller who argued that epi, based on several different lexicons, can refer to walking over, and he believes that it should be as over because it carries that extra weight of like this person is not even just like walking on, but walking over like it's beneath him, and I was just like to positional, but like the hierarchical position, like he's walking over them, like they're nothing to him, or like personifying, continuing the personification of the waters. And you have this going back to Genesis 1 verse 2, where you have the dark, perpetual darkness and the home, but then you have God is there, and then it's just Mayim. And then he works. And you have this storm, and God's just walking straight through it. And it's like a huge Genesis 1 verse 2 moment right here.
Absolutely. Well, and it's really interesting just in, I guess, the word there, right? Peripatunta, meaning walk or walking. It's an ordinary word.
Yeah.
Which could be taken in one of a few ways. It could just be overlooked. Like it's just a word for walking. But there are other words for walking that might seem more forceful.
This is a casual walk.
This is a casual walk. This is nothing.
Which is interesting because you have this casual walk in, what was it? Peripaton?
Peripatonta.
Peripatonta. But then you have peripatonta, so he's casually walking epi, which could be, as Miller argues, over. So he's like, he's casually walking over them like they're nothing to him, like they're beneath them, like it's just nothing. This chaos is nothing to him. He's just walking right on by, which makes sense a little bit of why the disciples are freaking out. They're like, first off, a dude walking on water, what? And they're like, because their response was like, oh, this must be a ghost. And they cry out in fear because they're like, a dude walking on water? Excuse me? But also, I think, like, not just think about the fact that it's just a person walking water, but how calmly he's walking on the water. There is not this need to like stomp on it. He's not rebuking it like in the whole passage about this when he's asleep in the boat. He's just walking and the storm is not affecting him.
Not in the least.
There is no effect on him. Chaos has no effect on God. Which is just like people who say there's no God passages in the Gospels. First off, they're all over the place.
Oh my goodness. Every single chapter.
But like this one, it's just, I mean, they're all loaded, but this one's like loaded with Genesis and Exodus and Psalms, like verse after verse after verse.
Yeah.
There's times where they'll put a little bit of space. This one, they're like leaving you no space.
Yeah. No, it is one right after the other. And I love the dichotomy that Matthew casts here, right? Like how you're talking about that chaos has no effect on God. Well, it was torturing the boat. This idea that there's something that we have absolutely no control over and just torments us at every turn has no effect on God.
Which tells us why we should rest in Him to deal with chaos and not think that we can. You know, I was thinking about this earlier, not in the same exact context, but similar. I don't know if you still listen to NF at all or anything like that.
Not a lot, but I did see that he has something coming out recently.
Okay, yeah. So I know people have their different opinions on NF. I had friends back in high school who were either thought he had great music or were adamantly against him. Some they loved his beats or his instrumental stuff.
Yeah.
Did not care for his lyrics, but loved his skill. And then there was me who was like, I appreciate the entire art, especially as someone who was struggling with the very same things that he was struggling with. It made me not feel like I was by myself. And then he had his album Hope come out and The Search, which The Search was still a heavy album, but it was like working his way towards betterment. Yeah. Hope was like still hard, but we're getting there. And then today, Fear dropped.
Oh, that came out today.
It came out today.
Okay.
By the time we're recording this, 2 music videos came out with it. But the first one, the very first song on the album, which is the title track, and is the first music video that came out. There are some people who was like hyped about the entertainment value of it. I found myself crying for him because you saw that all of this effort to get better has just collapsed back on. And we talked a little bit about chaos with like the cosmic, spiritual, like visual level. Like you see this storm here that God's walking through, like it's nothing. And like this very visual chaos. And we kind of mentioned the whole personal chaos last week. And I was kind of thinking about it today when I watched that. And I was thinking one of the chaoses that is so prevalent in our society today that on one hand, I think on one hand is over-talked and also under-talked at the same time is the mental and spiritual health people are having. Overtalked in the essence that people overstate certain aspects of it, and I think that the wrong aspects to overstate. And it's like the whole, it's just chemical issues, it's just this.
Right.
And then people are understating it, who are like, saying because they're opposed to that, they're just saying, well, because it's just chemical issues, or they need to get over it. Or they're saying, I remember a pastor one time saying, those who have depression are just narcissists. And I was like, excuse me. Or I had a friend who one time said, if you're depression, you just don't have faith in God, you're probably not a Christian. I was like, excuse me? That is so far from the truth. David.
Yeah. I mean, how many lamenting psalms did David write?
Oh my goodness.
And to bring it up for the second time today, when his son dies.
Oh yeah.
You're telling me he didn't eat, sleep, or do anything except for weep for 7 days, and that's not depression? What is depression?
Yeah. And I guess tying this point, and there's more that could be said. First off, as a musician, oh my goodness, that song is probably, in my opinion, one of the best things he's ever written. It is instrumentally super simple, but layers upon layers, it just keeps layering on each other. And the lyrics are probably one of the best things he's ever written. Even people where I saw were cheering about it, and I understand why. I found myself in tears for him. I was like, and then I saw the end of the video, and I listened to the rest of the songs. I understand why, like, he had so much loss this past year. And then he's afraid about how his music is not feeling the same way anymore to him.
Yeah.
He said he's still writing, he doesn't not writing trash, but he doesn't feel like he has the same motivation, where he's worried that he's losing it as a musician, and like all these things that he had hopes for and his dreams are like, are all come crashing down. And he's like, Lord, I'm lost. I'm confused. Is this you? Are you doing this to teach me something? Is this not you? Did you burn this down? Did I burn this down? What's happening here? I'm not going to answer those questions for him, but last week we talked about how the chaos fights sometimes the way it fights God is by attacking God's creation, God's people.
Yeah.
And I hear how, because the storm can't do anything to God, the one is torturing is the people in the boat. Chaos, it's not just sometimes that whole spiritual warfare that we kind of think of it, like this very visual cosmic thing. Sometimes it's that personal low ground, hidden, but no matter how visual or unvisual it is, it doesn't go quietly unless God intervenes. And even if like for a second it thinks God is not involved, it will try to seep its way back in, especially if we let it. Or if we find ourselves in a position, whether we meant to put ourselves or not, where it comes back to absolutely decimate us. And I say that because when I listened to NF's song today and watched that video, I was reminded of how many people in our country and across the world where chaos,
that's all they know.
It is coming after them hard. And for some people, and that's not to downplay those who maybe don't face that same kind of chaos. Everyone faces it different ways, but it doesn't just like attack you. It wants to absolutely decimate you. And yet we have a king who it can't be affected by it. And the only way it does affect him is the fact that he descends into it. So that way we can be brought out of it.
I taught a 2-hour lesson, essentially, on John 1:1 that pales in comparison to what I could teach on Matthew 14:27. And it is my favorite Greek verse. So I want you to go ahead and read it in the English.
Sure. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Have courage, I am he. Do not be afraid." Which is like a very common translation is "I am he."
That's not what Jesus said. Euthus de alelesen ho Iesus atois legon tharasete ego I me. Straight, but Jesus said to them, I say, be of good cheer. I am, says Yahweh. I got chills, man. Wow. I mean, that when I first started looking at this passage in the Greek, I genuinely had to stop what I was doing and I just stared ahead for like 5 minutes trying to process what exactly just happened there. I mean, that is Exodus 3. Moses tries to make up an excuse and get out of it. He's afraid. And the angel of the Lord says, I am. The disciples here are afraid. They want out of this chaos. And Jesus' response to them is Yahweh. I could write 1,000 term papers on this one verse and all of the significance that it is, and the culmination of these past few verses right here, where we have the prophet go up the mountain, meet with God, and we go back to Genesis and say, there is chaos, there is tormenting, God is over it, it is nothing to him. And then we have, boom, here is God, undeniably, ever present, even in the chaos, Yahweh.
We still have a second half to this, and we have another section we want to get to of like a few verses looking at Jesus with Jonah and some other stuff, and then we're going to get to Revelation, where we have really traced Abuson a little more intensely. Be on the lookout for those few episodes. They'll be coming up in the next few weeks as well. Man, have courage. Do not be afraid.
He is.
He is. And with that, whatever chaos you're going through, whether it be relational with people, whether it be something visible, like what they're going through here, or be something that is so personally entrapped by you in your head that no one else can see it, but is tearing you apart. One, I don't know how to respond to all of those in kind, truly. And I don't think this is the platform for you to do that. I pray that you go find someone that in the church that you can find to help with that, and to pray to the Lord with help for that. Have courage, take heart. He is, and He is reigning. So with that, thank you for tuning in with us. We'll continue our conversation with Chaos Waters,
As the Lord will.
and we will see you guys next time.